got what you wanted, but you got what you need. Now you got what you wanted, you ain't got what you need. You ain't got what you wanted, but you got what you need. Now you got what you wanted, but you ain't got what you need. No one said it'd be easy, no one said it'd be good. No one ever tried to teach me, even though I wish they would. Okay, what a World Big Profit Jewel podcast. I'm honored to have my guest with me, Dr.Orest. He's a former surgeon, a periodontal regenerative surgeon, and now he's 70-year-old and is teaching a life coach. He's teaching men how to reclaim their masculinity and raise their testosterone and also to improve the relationships. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. And thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'm very interested. It sounds like you're living your best life at 70. You're still pushing heavy weights, good shape, and yeah, I'm just really interested. Like, how do you help people, and what's your experience as a life coach?
As a life coach, one of the things that happens is that I have conversations with men that they would never have with anyone else. And we get into really honest conversations because most of the time when men have conversations with other men, they tend to be kind of guarded, they tend to be vague, they tend to be kind of like afraid or cautious
Right.
when they have conversations. So they don't speak the truth, they don't speak the honesty. And part of coaching has to do with getting at really the honest situation about where you are at right now. Where are you at? Where are you at in your health? Where are you at in your relationship? Where are you at financially? And sometimes for many men, most of the men that I tend to deal with are financially successful, and they've paid a price in other areas of their life. They paid a price in their relationships or in their health, and so I work through them. The process starts with where are you and what do you want? And when we get to the what do you want, people tend to be very walking generalities, like I want to be happy. Well, I don't have a fucking clue what that means. I don't understand it. Uh, and so what do you want? And we have to do it in a measurable way.
Right.
It has to be measurable. It has to be like, okay, you're where you are is where you're starting.
Mhm.
What you want is what you're working towards, and we measure it. You have to measure it. You just can't. It can't be elusive. It can't be something. It has to be measurable. But the hardest part is getting at the hard conversations. And I have conversations with, I said, with people, um, you know, uh, about their addictions, maybe about their perversions, about their health, their intimacy, all those things. And it's a it's an honest conversation, and part of my job is also to call people on their bullshit
Right.
when they're lying to me, but more importantly, they're lying to themselves, and that happens real often. And we all do that. We all do that. I do that. We all do that to some extent. And sometimes we want to pretend things aren't the way they are actually are, and put on a brave face, and everybody goes to church and gets happy clappy, and sing a hymn and think it's all going to be all okay when they walk out. But it's not.
Mhm.
It's not. And so that's kind of having the hard conversations is really the most important thing, because until you're brutally honest with yourself, then nothing really happens.
I definitely agree. Uh, One of the main things I speak about on my podcast is the mind and mental health, and yeah, just those hard conversations. and being honest with yourself. Until you're honest with yourself, you can't grow. And like there's people that I know that gone to therapy and haven't made any progress because they're not honest with their therapist or with themselves, you know?
Coaching is very different from therapy, in that we are results focused.
Mm,
Okay, I am not in the business to make you uh, in the business to make you feel good. What I am is what I am about is helping you get the results so that you make yourself feel good.
right, right.
Okay, it's not my job to make you feel good, and yet, and if me talking with you makes you feel good, I'm not doing my job,
Cool, cool.
because
Okay.
we're very results oriented. The results is where the results and the work is where the work and the stress is where the results are,
Yeah.
and that's true in all aspects of your life.
Yeah, definitely growth is uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if I hit it every day, but every day I try to be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday. Some days it works, some days it doesn't, but that's the plan,
Yeah.
because there's no such thing as status quo.
Mm,
People think they're going to, like, oh, I'm just going to maintain things the way they are. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no such thing as status quo is absolutely impossible. And if you think you're maintaining status quo, that's when you're in a real danger zone
right.
in your health or in your relationship, especially in your relationship. Uh, so that's the difficult thing.
So, relationships, what would be um, your best piece of advice as far as relationships go? Like, you're still married to your wife after um, over 30 years?
32, 32, 32. Um, so I think part of it is to understand, one is to have communication, and two, to understand that there are times where you're going to be the primary person in a relationship. There's going to be times where she's the primary person in the relationship, and there are times where you have to function as a couple.
Well,
And
yeah, what do you mean by primary person?
well, okay, so I'm my wife is does mergers and acquisitions. She's an advisor. She helps sell companies to the middle market, which is anywhere from 5 million to 150 million. If she's in a deal, I make sure I take care of her.
Yeah.
Okay, because as things come to a close, it gets very chaotic. It gets very hectic, and there's a lot of tension. When millions of dollars are about to change hands, first of all, everyone in the room is smart. There's no dummies selling multi-million dollar companies. So everyone in the room is really smart and sharp, and just it's a stressful environment for everyone, the buyer and the seller, and the person who actually guides the buyer, which is my wife. No, I'm sorry, the seller. My wife represents the seller, not the buyer. She does every once rarely buyers, but most of the time the sellers. So there are times when whatever's going on in someone's life, that the other person has to be there supporting. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, most definitely. Oh, that's great advice. Um, as far as um, one thing that really interests me too is like with my friends. I'm 36, right, and my friends that were just around the same age. Some people are talking about taking testosterone and like just changing their life habits. And me personally, I just rather work out, do squats instead of try to take anything because like I heard that it'll change your natural levels. But like it sounds like you very educated in the subject.
Yeah. Somewhere around, usually in their late 30s, early 40s, men start to have a significant drop in just testosterone levels, and it continues on in life. Uh, I've been on testosterone, and I need to do this disclaimer that I'm not a physician. Consult with the appropriate healthcare professional before pursuing any sort of therapy, especially with testosterone. So I've been on testosterone for about 30 years. Oh, I think over 30 years. And the thing is that once your levels start going down, there really isn't a good way for you to maintain your testosterone levels. And that's what testosterone is really all about, being a man in many ways. Okay. It affects your mood. Now, people think it's about sex and all that, but it's actually very important. One, it's a monster antidepressant.
Mm.
Okay. It helps you keep your muscle on, helps you lean out your body. Now, my family is fat. We got fat genes. Everybody's fat. My mother was 300 pounds. My sister's 300 pounds, and in a wheelchair. Probably if I wasn't doing testosterone, I'd probably be 300 pounds, taking insulin shots. So it helps your heart. It helps your energy levels, your mental acuity, and there's so many benefits. And I see men who aren't. And I can tell when I go into a gym, I can tell who's on and who's not. It's really easy. It's not, especially as the guys get older, you can tell who it is. And yeah, in your 30s, probably didn't really need it. But as I got into my 40s, which was when I started, that was when I started to notice. And there's a lot of myths about it. Fortunately, there just came out a study that basically contradicts all those myths regarding testosterone. Testosterone does not give you heart disease. It doesn't give you prostate cancer. It doesn't make your balls fall off. It doesn't, all these things that people said. My primary care doctor told me all this stuff was going to happen to me when I started testosterone. It didn't. And so, like I said, there just recently came out a big, very good 5,000 person study that said essentially it's safe. The only thing that happens is sometimes if you take it, your RBC red blood cells go up, and you have to have a therapeutic phlebotomy where they draw some blood. It's no big deal. It's like donating blood at Red Cross. But you can get that from sleep apnea too. So it's an important thing. Now, the thing is that on TV you'll see lots of supplements. Who are the football player that promotes it on TV? I can't remember which one it is, but there's several of them, and they do raise your testosterone level, but in my opinion, not to where what I would call it being optimized. Mm. And the only way to do that is through taking testosterone that's prescribed. Everything that I do is prescribed. I don't do anything that's not prescribed. Or pharmacy grade quality.
So how do I really know nothing about it or how to, so
Yep.
you go to a doctor, you get it prescribed, and it's at the
Yep.
pharmacy?
Well, it's a little bit more than that. First of all, let's talk about the lab values. Okay. The lab values are the average of unhealthy men. Okay, that's how they figure. Everyone gets a test, they average it. Now, some of the lab companies have just dropped a high from 1160 to 960 as the high normal. That's a huge jump. Okay, so how did that happen? Well, there is a generation. There's several studies called also the Massachusetts Male Normative Aging Study and several other studies that talk about generational decline of testosterone levels in men. Okay, a man 20 years ago, a 60-year-old man 20 years ago had about 16% more testosterone than a 60-year-old man today.
Wow.
Okay, and that's continuing to happen. So those lab values are not optimization. My opinion is that in order to be optimized, you have to find the right doctor who is is not locked into the thinking of those lab ranges. Okay. And so that's a challenge. That's a challenge because most people practice defensive medicine. And the other thing is that now a lot of practices are owned by private equity groups. You go in there for 15 minutes and the doctor fills out a bunch of codes and gives you a bunch of prescriptions. And then the next thing you know, you're standing there at the pharmacy getting a whole bunch of drugs.
Yeah.
So a lot of these anti-aging doctors that are very good, first of all, they don't take insurance. Okay. And so that's one the thing, and they spend a lot of time with you. One of my doctors I went in, they spent about an hour with me, to get to know me. Uh, the other thing is that also that now it's become so popular that you have all these what I call these T mills, and testosterone is actually very inexpensive.
Okay.
But they add on a bunch of stuff that you really don't need when you go in to go to these places. A lot of them do, some of them don't. But I just don't think because I had an interaction with someone and I said like he told me I should have had all this other stuff. I'm going like, well, gosh, I've interviewed a lot of doctors. If you go to my podcast, it's still up. I just haven't put anything up there, but it's called Old Guy Talks to Me. There's about 5 or 6 interviews with experts in testosterone optimization. And so I've been through a lot of them. I've been through several doctors. One of them ended up in jail. Uh, he's an arrogant prick. Uh, he, he somehow he was involved. I don't know. I don't know if you remember, or I don't know if you might have been too young to even remember. There's some wrestler that got into a murder suicide type of deal,
Oh,
and so he had
the Chris
he
Benoit.
somehow he yeah, I don't remember his name, but he somehow he was involved in that, and then the FDA raided his office, and then he went down for an interview to the FDA without a lawyer. How arrogant, how stupid do you
Yeah,
got to be?
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. That's totally insane, because he thought he was the smartest guy in the room, and he wasn't. And I'm sure that the FDA agents that were interviewing were going like, "Holy crap! Does that guy even know what he's saying?" I mean, I'm sure they thought, and he thought he was fine because they let him walk out of there. He thought they were, if he said something bad, they're building a case. So, but neither here nor there. But so you know, getting finding the right doctor is the biggest challenge in that area.
Yeah. So with everything with testosterone declining from generation to generation, what do you, from your point of view, what do you think is should my generation be doing? Like, what do you think of my generation and the younger ones coming up? How do you look at these younger people and their mentality and how they're approaching life?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of an interesting phenomenon, because there've been several articles about this, and it's actually young women complaining that they're not finding young men to be manly. And when you talk about younger people, see the ranges now, and just it's been a while since I looked at like 260 to 960. That's considered like quote unquote normal range. I have run into, and my friends who are urologists and physicians say that they are encountering more young men in their 20s with lower testosterone levels than men in their 50s and 60s.
Wow.
I have a friend of mine whose 2 sons, one was 23, the other one was 26, 125
Oof.
and 175.
Oof.
Yeah. And I'm hearing that, and doctors are hearing it. And the sad thing is that, if you happen to, maybe you're not at 125, maybe you're at 300, but you quote unquote fall into the norm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the doctor will go, oh no, you don't need anything. You're in a normal range. Like, dude, you should be really high in your 20s. You should be at your
Oh,
peak,
yeah.
especially your early 20s and early 30s. You should
That's a
be close to
huge
your
range
peak.
from
Yeah. Well,
250 to
yeah. Well, it's
950.
awesome. Yeah. 250 to 250 or something like that to 960s. Again, it's the average of unhealthy people. And the guy, the doctor who's a PhD, MD from Harvard, who sets those ranges, he said an interesting thing to someone once. He said those lab values are not meant to treat individual people. It's epidemiological data. Okay, it's like you would not want to be in the average of body mass in the United States.
Right, right.
You're fat. If you're in the average, you're fat.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. I know people go, oh, you can't use that word, whatever. Oh, screw you. Uh, so so you know that's these numbers are being used, and they're being used as defensive medicine. Okay. And like I said, I have these discussions with doctors when they see my lab values and like, oh, you're so high here. Well, no, I'm not. I feel great.
Yeah.
I think great. I feel great. I do things. I don't think I act like I'm 71.
Right, right. Nah, I saw a picture of you bungee jumping.
Oh yeah, that was pre-COVID. I was with my youngest daughter in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And so we did, that was the last day. That was kind of fun. That was funny. That was about like 6 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. 7 years ago. It was 7 years ago, 6 years. No, it was 6 years ago. Because we were already living in Las Vegas. And yeah, we went there. We went there over Christmas, and I spent about almost 3 weeks with her there. And we did a whole trip around New Zealand, and finished it off with the bungee jumping, which is kind of an interesting thing. It's a Have you ever jumped out of an airplane?
No.
Yeah, I did that once, and it was kind of funny. I got to the door, and so you're hooked up with you're basically you're in a jumpsuit with another person. There's two of you in there, okay? And I got to the edge of the door, and I go like, I don't think I could do this. And the guy goes, oh yeah, you can. Next thing you know, we're out the door. But what was interesting, the same thing happened when I was at the bungee jumping. As soon as you leave, all the fear goes. It's crazy. As
Yeah,
soon as you leave, all the fear goes.
yeah, no, that's very
So
true.
yeah, I mean, I would do it again. I mean, I don't, if it was someplace spectacular. We don't have any plans to go there, but Victoria Falls and I can't remember where in Africa it is, but they have a bungee jump.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think those may be some of the largest waterfalls in the world. But yeah, they're pretty spectacular.
So, um, yeah, that's very interesting. And so what do you think? Do you think there's a relation between like taking risks and testosterone, and or what kind of advice would you give for the young people, the people that are 20 and have like a 175 level?
You have to go out there and find a good doctor, because you need someone who's experienced and can be a guide, because uh, it's a challenging place to be. It really is. And finding the right doctor is a challenge. Uh, and a lot of them know what to say, but when it comes down to writing that prescription or treating you, they don't do it.
Right. What if
Uh,
you can't find let's say you can't find a good doctor? What would you
find
suggest?
one, find one. Don't give up. Okay, I mean, yeah, it's like you just don't give up. It's not that you don't say, oh, I'm going to go look for a week and then, oh, I haven't found anyone, I just give up. I mean, if you want to give up on your life, that's fine. But I'm not interested in doing that. And so, like I said, finding the right doctor, they're out there. They're out there. Uh, but that is the challenge. And I think the doctor one of the things you might want to talk to that doctor about uh, is, what do you think about the ranges? Do you treat people to the ranges?
Mhm.
And if they say yes, my recommendation would be to move on. And if they say no, you may have found your person.
Yeah, it's good. So like most people are sitting behind a desk, in front of a computer screen, um, don't get out like this sedentary lifestyle. Like, what would you suggest to have longevity in your life as far as a lifestyle change?
Well, I sit in front of my desk all the time because I do spend a lot of time on marketing, and my job is being on the internet, promoting my program, um, um, which you can find at the Standard Academy. Um, and so I'm on social media quite a bit. So as a result, uh, one of the things I make sure is that I do get exercise in every day except Sunday. I'm not very good about it. Sunday's kind of like the day I want to take off. I think I take a mental health day off, even though I'd still work on Sundays, but just not as much. When the weekends come, I don't spend as much time working as I do during the week. I'll put in about 8, 9 hours of work during the week because there's certain things I have to get done. And so that the other thing is to keep on learning. Uh, I think that's really important. The other things is to be very, very, very careful about who you choose as your friends.
Mm, okay.
I've had friends that I've let go in my life, and I'm very careful about who I let into my life at this point. Just, I think that's such an important thing, because if you are around a bunch of people that are not driven, then guess what? You're gonna end up being not driven. It's like guys who are in unhappy marriages, and they get around other guys who are in unhappy marriages, and all they do is that they just whine about their spouses, and it just becomes more and more. They just become more and more miserable and more self-righteous about where they are, and not willing to take the responsibility. And no one in that group does, because they're all just sitting around, feeling sorry for themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I think being careful about who you allow into your inner circle is very important. And like I said, I've had people that I don't, I've kicked out of my inner circle, and some by just attrition. Some I've actually told. I said, like, no, we can't be friends anymore because of this, and that. So I think that's real important. When you asked about longevity, I think a lot of it has, for me, a lot of it has to goes back to the testosterone, and how I think, and continue to work. I don't see myself ever retiring. I don't know what I would do if I would retire. When we had someone who knew, actually someone who we kind of pushed out of our life. He had I think a 8-figure exit, and the first number was not a one, of his businesses, and he played golf every day, and he was miserable.
Wow.
He
Yeah.
was miserable. He was miserable. He was personally miserable, and he became very miserable to be around. And the thing also was that he thing that really bugs me is when people ask for advice and then they don't do it. It's
Yeah.
like, why'd you bother? I think that's where the expression "ask hole" comes from.
Yeah,
Have you heard that one?
yeah. Well, I heard that word. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, dude, dude. Don't if you're not going to take action, don't waste my time by me having to explain to you something that you're not going to act on. Especially, and I can understand maybe once, but like if you keep on coming back to me with the same questions, the answers aren't going to change. The answers aren't going to change.
Most definitely. So, one thing I like to ask every guest is, how do you define mental health?
Interesting. First of all, I never really thought about it. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. And it's really part of it is I find mental health by working to be a better version of yourself every day. That's really what it's all about. And you know, it's also the most important relationship that you have is with yourself. And if that is not good, nothing else will work. Absolutely nothing, because that's the foundation for all the other relationships that you have. And so you have to have a good relationship with yourself. And that boils down to the conversations that you have in your with yourself in your head.
Right.
Okay, if you have unhealthy conversations, and if there are victim conversations, that's the other thing is to not be a victim. If you say like, oh, this always happens to me, well, guess what? It's going to always happen to you.
Right.
If that's your attitude, or I couldn't do anything about it. I don't like the couldn't, can't. I had to. No, you had choices.
Right.
You had choices, and you decided to go in particular directions. We all do, and there's some choices I made that I didn't. I wish I hadn't, but I did. But you accept responsibility for it. But I think that, like I said, I think probably the mental. When we talk about mental health, the most important part is the conversation is the relationship you have with yourself. And that doesn't mean that you have like an unrealistic, it's got to be honest, but it has to be a good relationship with yourself. I don't know. Do you ever read any Jordan Peterson books?
Yeah, I read his first book, not I haven't read the second one.
Yeah, the is that the 12 Rules of Life?
Right. Right.
Yeah, and he has a great comment. Yeah, he says that treat yourself as you would want someone else to be treated. Is because we tend to be very hard on a lot of us tend to be very hard on ourselves, including me. Uh, but that's handled with daily gratitude.
So, yeah, what do you say to yourself? Like, what's one of your favorite things that you like say to yourself or you think to yourself?
One of the things is that well, it depends on where I'm at, but it's really about being in solution mode. Okay, what do I need to do to get the results I want? That's really kind of often the question I ask. Or what do I need? Or if I am acting and not getting the results, then the question is, what do I need to do differently? It's not like, oh, well, I'm a failure and this is not working. No. What do you need to do differently to get the results you want? And, when people talk about therapy, um, quite often the solution has very little to do with the problem. Okay. And this is an example that I gave. It's very easy to understand. You're in your car and there's a tree in the middle of the road that's blocking you. How that tree got there is irrelevant to you solving the problem of getting around that tree.
Yeah.
It could have been struck by lightning, it could have been disease, somebody could have chopped it down, whatever, all sorts of things. How it got there is irrelevant to solving the problem of you getting around that tree. But people are like, oh, well, how did this happen? Well, it probably may be irrelevant often. Now there are times where I think, yeah, if it's a continual basis, and then you don't ask yourself the question, well, why is that always happening to me? No, that's not the question. What you want to do is, and you don't even want to ask, how do I prevent this from happening to me? Because it's still ingrained to the behavior. The question you want to ask a question that's results oriented. How do I get what I want?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll send you a link to it. Okay.
That sounds good. Yeah, that was great. No, that was a great answer, and yeah, I'm definitely gonna remember that analogy. 'Cause, yeah, a lot of times we get caught up in why this happened and not how can we solve the problem.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, I wish I mean, I'm sound like I'm perfect, but every once in a while, I get into that. But I learned a long time ago how not to. I used to be a very negative person. I used to be a very victim oriented person, and it didn't serve me well.
Yeah,
It didn't serve me well because I did not take responsibility for my life.
yeah. Responsibility is the only way to change. Actually
Mhm.
have control of your life. So, that's great advice. But yeah, that like I really appreciate you making the time to have this conversation. Um, I really admire and appreciate what you do and how you do it, and living by example. Like it's a great thing. And yeah, like how can people reach out to you or find you or follow what you do?
Uh, my website is the standard.academy. And if they if they're interested in getting on an initial call with me, go to this the standard.academy/discovery call. And you can reach out to me that. And you can also go to my podcast if you want at uh, Old Guy Talks to Me, and it's on all the major platforms. And there's lots of interviews. Like I said, I did interviewed like about five or six experts in the testosterone field, a lot of stuff on intimacy, and then a lot of stuff that's just kind of generally interesting to a lot of people. Probably the most famous person I've interviewed is Forrest Griffin from the UFC.
Okay, yeah.
Uh, and but I've interviewed people I've had guests on my podcast have been on Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan, most notably Dom DiGustino, who's probably one of the world's expert on ketosis and ketogenic diets, and a few others that have been high profile people. So very, like I said, it was an opportunity for me to spend an hour with someone who normally would know had no reason to talk to me. I
That's
mean,
enough
it's just,
to say.
yeah, no. I mean, this goes back to, uh, there's no reason for Forrest Griffin to hang with me. We're not going to be buddies. We're not going to, we're not going to, he's not going to come to my house. I'm not going to go to his house, and we're not going to smoke cigars and all that. But he was gracious enough to spend a hour with me on a call where we talked about stuff. And my interview was not the typical UFC interview question
Right.
because it was because there's tons of those where people talk about moves and this and that, and so
Yeah.
I asked him like who's the best trash talker. Uh, and it was fun. And the name kid that was surprised me was Henry Cejudo. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I was surprised that he said that he was the best trash talker in the
Really.
UFC. Yeah, I mean, I would have thought for sure he was going to say Conor McGregor. I mean, that was like the obvious choice. But he said Henry Cejudo. And we talked a little bit about what happens when you're in a ring, when people are taunting you, what things. So we got into stuff that, like I said, normally I don't think a lot of people ask those kind of questions.
Yeah.
But it was more about that, and uh, it was an interesting interview.
Yeah. I definitely will check it out. And yeah, I'll put the link in the description so other people could check it out too. I'm definitely looking
Yeah,
forward to
yeah, yeah.
more.
But yeah, the discovery call is probably is one of the ways to figure out how to um, what's going on, and it benefits people just even if they choose not to be coached by me. There's a lot of benefit to it.
Cool. One last question. Yeah, it sounds like you read a lot too. Do you have any book recommendations?
Um, there's several that I think have been very good that I've read. Um, One is called, and I can't remember the author's name, called Atomic Habits.
Yeah, yeah,
Have you read that one?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
James,
yeah,
James something. I
yeah. I think that's really good. There's a book called The Road Less Stupid, which is really good. And there's a classic that everyone should read, uh, The Prince by Machiavelli.
Oh, okay.
It's not a long read, but and I don't understand why Machiavelli gets such a bad rap. All he's doing is talking about how people are.
Yeah.
He was probably the one of the first uh, political sociologists,
Mm,
and it's historical because uh, he talks about lots of things in a very dispassionate, pragmatic way. He talks about how why certain people survived, other people did not. He talked about how his thing about talking about one of the things I recall is why did the Romans, who were actually very few in number, were able to conquer such a big part of the world? And his thing is like, well, they just never let anyone get strong around them. If
mm,
if there was a problem, they just went and killed you. That's all. And everybody else understood, well, don't do that. And it didn't kill you. They're actually the ones who I believe they're the originators of crucifixions. But they would just kill you. They never let anyone, if there was a problem, they just react to it immediately and not let their enemy get stronger.
yeah.
And that's how they conquered. They conquered such a big part of the world.
Yeah, you could definitely see that happening in the world now, like
Oh yeah,
America for sure.
oh yeah. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I in the 90s, I told my kids to learn Chinese because that's the next war we're going to fight. Now I don't know if it's going to be a conventional one, but we're everybody goes like, oh no, we're just competitors. No, they're at war with us.
Yeah, no, definitely. You could see
Yeah, yeah, they're at war with us. A subtle one right now, but there's it's they're not our friends.
yeah, whether it's socially or economically, it's still being taken seriously. Like it's not as friendly as people may imagine, but
Yeah,
it's what
yeah,
it is. That's the way of the world,
yeah, and they are not to be underestimated
for sure, for sure.
because they're clever and ruthless.
Yeah, no,
Actually, yeah. Actually, I don't know. I just remembered something about uh, the Prince was actually mandatory reading for people in the KGB.
really
Yeah, yeah. That was
interesting.
mandatory. That was one of the mandatory reading books for the KGB in the Soviet Union.
I wonder why. I wonder why. But
Because it's, as I said, it's a dispassionate view of people,
right.
and uh, there's no glossing over it. It's kind of like the thing about and I've been in this situation where, like, you go out on a limb, and everybody says, "Oh, I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to be there for you," and like next thing you know, you're going like, "Where is everyone?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like where are those people that said they're going to be there for me, and they're not there? And that's how is the people, the ones that are worthwhile friends are the ones that they're there for you when they say they're going to be there for you, and then they also tell you, "Don't do that."
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Is like, you don't want to underestimate people, but you don't want to overestimate them either. You don't want to always be thinking like, everybody's altruistic or everybody's really going to have your back. Everybody's really out for their own intentions.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's human nature.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with people being out for their, now if they do it honestly, with integrity and all that stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't that's called being responsible for yourself.
Right. And that's the thing too. Is I think like you can't. I think it's selfish to think that everybody's gonna have your back more than they'll have their own. Like I think we have
Yeah,
this expectation that people should be doing things, and that's really a selfish way to look at things too.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I won't take any more of your time. Well, thank you for having this conversation. And I learned a lot from it, and I hope my audience learns a lot from it too. I really appreciate it.
all right, great. And thank you. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
All right, all right. No
You
more
have a
pizza.
great,
No. Thank you once again, man. Yeah,
thank
have
you.
a great long
You
weekend.
got what you wanted, but you
All
got what
right,
you
all right,
need.
you too. Take
Now
care.
you got what you wanted. You ain't got what you need. You ain't got what you wanted, but you got what you need. Now you got what you wanted, but you ain't got what you need. No one said it'd be easy. No one said it'd be good. No one ever tried to teach me, even though I wish they would. Everybody playing my games, thinking they in control. About trying to be righteous, announcements with they soul. It's always push and pull. Why it's always run and chase? Some things I wanted forever, and a number of ways. Perfect ain't nothing replace. Feel like I'm running in place. Feel like I'm stuck in a maze. Hoping it just was a phase. And you got what you wanted, but you got what you need. And you got what you wanted. You ain't got what you need. Ain't got what you wanted, but you got what you need. Now you got what you wanted. You ain't got what you need. I just wanna grow now. I ain't tryna act like I know now. I'm grown but ain't old now. Lift up with who I hold down. Keep my circle much smaller. If it ain't worth it, I don't bother.